Hi, Grandma here, and I'm going to read The Midwife's Apprentice by Karen Cushman. It is a Newbery Award winner, and that always piques my interest. One year when I was teaching middle school, that was my goal, was to read 25 of the Newbery winners, and I got a lot of good reading done. So if you see a round seal on a book, that's usually a sign that it's going to be a good book. This is called A Midwife's Apprentice. A midwife is a person who is the nurse and the doctor for a woman when she has a baby. We still have midwives in the United States today and in other countries as well, although most people do use doctors in hospitals. A midwife has special training, and they go to school, and they will often come to your home and help you deliver a baby. But this doesn't take place today. This, from the picture here, I can tell that this takes place, a couple hundred years ago. And when I preview a book, I often look at the picture on the front, and you notice there's no electricity, and so that tells me it was probably before the 1900s. And she has herbs in her hand. She doesn't have a pill bottle or a syringe in her hand, so that also tells me that this takes place quite some time ago. When I preview a book, I also like to read a little bit about what other people say about the book. And this one has an introduction by Lois Lowry, which is one of my favorite authors. I'm not going to read the whole introduction to you, but that she has written the introduction to the book means a lot to me. Another interesting thing is the titles of a book, and the titles of this book are kind of interesting. The first one is The Dung Heap. Then we have another one called The Twins, and another one called The Manor. And then when I read the back of the book, which it also gives, Kirkus Review is a very famous book review, and it says a gripping story, a rouser for all times. And then they have a bit of a little introduction on the back, and it says, a girl with no name and no home isn't expected to amount to too much, even by the girl herself. But as apprentice to Jane the midwife, the discarded girl becomes strong and happy enough to defy all expectations. In this funny and heartwarming story, she gives herself a name and gains a cat, a purpose in life, and people who love her. Pardon the reminder. Okay, Chapter 1, The Dung Heap. Now, dung heap means that this story takes place before flush toilets. And the dung heap is where people would take the bowel movements from the animals. Remember, they had a lot of horses and cows and sheep and dogs, and they put them all in one spot called the dung heap. And the dung heap eventually composted into some very good manure and a good fertilizer for the plants. But there's another quality to a dung heap which will be mentioned in this. When animal droppings and garbage and spoiled straw are piled up in a great heap, the rotting and moiling give forth heat. Usually no one gets close enough to notice because of the stench. But the girl noticed, and on that frosty night burrowed deep into the warm, rotting muck, heedless of the smell. In any event, the dung heap probably smelled little worse than everything else in her life. The food scraps scavenged from kitchen yards, the stables and sties she slept in when she could, and her own unwashed, unnourished, unloved, and unlovely body. How old she was hard to say. She was small and pale, with the frightened air of an ill-used child. But her scrawny, underfed body, excuse me, I turned too many pages, did give off a hint of woman. So perhaps she was 12 or 13. No one knows for sure. Least of all the girl herself, who knew no home, no mother, and no name but Brat, and never had someone she assumed must have been born her and cared for her lest she toddle into a pond and change her diapers when they reeked. But as long as she could remember, Brat had lived on her own by what means she could, stealing an onion here or helping with the harvest there in exchange for a night on the stable floor. She took what she could from a village and moved on before the villagers with their rakes and sticks drove her away. Snug cottages and warm bread and mothers who hugged their babes were beyond her imagining, but dearly would she have loved to eat a turnip without the mud of the field still on it, or sleep in a barn fragrant with new hay and not the rank smell of pigs who fart when they eat too much. Tonight she settled for the warm rotting of a dung heap, where she dreamed of nothing, for she hoped of nothing and expected nothing. It was as cold and dark inside her as out in the frosty night. Morning brought rain to ease the cold, and the kick of the boot in Brat's belly, hunger. Brat hated hunger the most, or was it the cold? She knew only that hunger and cold cursed her life and kept her walking and walking and working for no other reason than to stop the pain. Dung beetle, smelly old dung beetle sleeping in the dung. Boys. In every village there were boys, teasing, taunting, pinching, kicking. Always they were the scrawniest or the ugliest or the dirtiest or the stupidest boys, picked on by everyone else with no one left uglier or stupider than they, but her. And as they taunted and tormented her in every village, always, she closed her eyes. Hey, boys, have off. You're mucking up the path in my new Spanish leather shoes. Away. And you, girl, are you alive or dead? Brat opened one eye. A woman was there. A woman, neither old nor young, but in between. Neither fat nor thin, but in between. An important-looking woman with a sharp nose and a sharp glance and a wimple starched into sharp pleats. A wimple is something that they wear on their heads and around their faces to keep them warm. And it was a style. Brat opened, I already said that. Good, said the woman. You're not dead. No need to call the bailiff to cart you off. Now out of that heap and away. The fierce pain in her stomach made Brat bold. Please, may I have something to eat first? No beggars in this village, away. Please, mistress, a little to eat. Those who don't work don't eat. Brat opened her other eye to show her eagerness and energy. I will work, mistress. I am stronger and smarter than I seem. Smart enough to use the heat from the dung heap, I see. What can you do? Anything, mistress, but I don't eat much. The woman's sharp nose smelled hunger, which she could use to her own greedy purpose. Get up then, girl. You do put me in mind of a dung beetle burrowing in that heap. Get up, Beetle, and I may yet find something for you to do. So Brat, newly christened Beetle, got up, and the sharp lady found some work for her to do and rewarded her with dry bread and a half a mug of sour ale, which tasted so sweet to the girl that she slept in the dung heap another night, hoping for more work and more bread on the morrow. And there was more work, sweeping the lady's dirt floor, washing her linen in the stream, and carrying her bundles to the cottages where a new baby was expected, for the sharp lady was a midwife. Beetle soon acquired a new name, the Midwife's Apprentice, and a place to sleep that smelled much better than the dung heap, though it was much less warm. Chapter 2, The Cat. Beetle liked to watch the cat stretching in the sunshine, combing his belly with her tongue, chewing the burrs and stubble out from between his toes. She never dared get close, for she was afraid, but even from a distance could tell there was a gleaming patch of white in the dusty orange of his fur, right below his chin. That one ear had a great bite taken out of it, and that his whiskers were cockeyed, going up one side and down the other, giving him a frisky, cheerful look. Sometimes she left bits of her bread or cheese near the fence post by the river, where she first saw him, but not very often, for the midwife was generous only with the work she gave Beetle and stingy with rewards, and the girl was never overfed. Once she found a nest of baby mice who had frozen in the cold, and she left them by the fence for the cat. But her heart ached when she thought of the tiny, hairless bodies in those strong jaws, so she buried them deep in the dung heap and let the cat do his own hunting. The taunting, pinching village boys bedeviled the cat as they did her, but he, quicker and smarter than they, always escaped. She did not, and suffered their pinching and poking and spitting in silence, lest her resistance inspire them to greater torments. Mostly she avoided them and everyone else, hiding when she could, scurrying among hidden secret paths around the village, her head down and shoulders hunched. One sunny morning, with stolen bread in her pocket for dinner and a bit of old cheese to share with the cat, Beetle started for the fence post. The boys were already there, holding the cat aloft by his tail. His hissing and screeching sounded like demons to Beetle, and she covered her ears. "Into the sack with him, Jack," cried one boy. "We will see whether a cat can best an eel." And the sack with eel and cat was tossed into the pond. Beetle stayed hidden, more afraid to attract the taunts and torments of the boys than to lose a cat. After a time, the tumbling sack sank into the reedy water and all was still. "Ah, Jack, you were right. The eel took that cat right down." And the boy with the runny nose gave 2 apples to the boy with the broken teeth, and they all went back to the fields. Beetle waited a long time before she came out of hiding, and waded into the muddy pond. With a stick broken from a nearby willow, she searched through the reedy water, poking around and around the spot where the bag had gone down, working in a bigger and bigger circle. Finally, near the edge of the pond, half out of the water, she found the bag, now soggy and still. She dragged it out of the water, sat back on her heels, and watched. No movement. She poked it with her stick. Nothing. "Cat," she asked, "are you drowned? I'd open the sack and let you out, but I'd be sore afraid of the eel." "Cat?" She kicked the bag with her dirty bare foot. Nothing. She left the bag and started back to the village. Came back, left again, came back again. "The devil take you, cat," she cried. "I'd be sore afraid to open that sack, but I can't just let you be." Taking a sharp stone, she slit the bag and ran behind a tree. Looking like the devil himself, a shiny brown eel slithered out and made for the pond, and the bag was still again. Beetle watched it. Nothing. She crept closer. Nothing. A sudden movement sent her scurrying back to the tree, and then nothing again. She crept up to the bag and found the scrawny, scruffy orange cat tangled in the soggy sack. Carefully, she untangled his limp body and lifted him out of the bag by his front legs. "By cock and pie, cat, I would have you live." Ripping a piece from the rag she called her skirt, she wrapped him tightly and ran her secret hidden route back to the village. She scooped a hole in the dung heap and laid the cat in it. If Beetle had known any prayers, she might have prayed for the cat. If she'd known about the soft, sweet songs, she might have sung to him. If she'd known of gentle words and cooing, She would have spoken gently to him, but all she knew was cursing. "Damn you, cat, breathe and live, you flea-bitten sod, or I'll kill you myself." All day the cat lay still in his cave in the dung heap. Beetle stole time from her chores and came often to see him, wrap her skirt more tightly around him and make sure he still breathed. Twice she left bits of cheese, but they were not eaten. When she checked again after supper, as the sun was setting and the mist rising, he was gone, and the cheese with him. Nothing in the cave, in the dung heap, but her, a raggedy dress, and a few threads from the sack, which he must have carefully combed from his fur before setting forth into the night. And 2 days later, a holiday for the village, it being Lady Day, but not for Beetle, for the midwife would not feed those who did not work, even on Lady Day. There was the cat sitting on the fence post, licking his white patch to make it whiter still, waiting for Beetle and a piece of cheese. Finally, Beetle came, and they sat and ate the cheese together to celebrate Lady Day. And Beetle told him what she could remember of her life before they found each other and they fell asleep in the sun. Well, the next chapter is called The Midwife, so I guess we'll learn a little bit more about the midwife in the next chapter. Bye-bye.